get this going. What are we expecting to do? Well, I'm hoping that you have a good understanding on how to advocate effectively and that you learn outcomes around who makes decisions within different systemic structures and what are good targets, and also how to create a very strong advocacy message. Okay? And then let's go to the expectations here in the next slide. My hope is that this is a special moment for us to learn together, to build skills. And please, there's no such thing as a bad question. Feel free to ask as many questions as you can with however time we have together. And I just also ask that you kindly be mindful of how you participate to ensure that others also have the space to contribute to the conversation. Okay, does that sound good? All right, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to start with a question right away. What is advocacy? Can someone explain to me what comes to mind when you hear the word advocacy? What is advocacy in your own opinion, your own definition? Any guesses? Defending a value. Yes, I see that in the chat. Thank you. Okay. Any other guesses? What is advocacy? You can write in the chat or you can unmute yourself, whichever is easier. Don't be shy. But when you think of advocacy, what comes to mind? So you're defending a value. What else?
Speaking up for yourself.
Speaking up for yourself, absolutely, yes. And speaking up about causes you believe in, I see that in the chat, yes. All these are great answers. And speaking on behalf of yourself and others, I love that. Great, great, great. These are all great responses. And also setting boundaries and fighting for a cause. And that's another great comment here. These are all phenomenal answers. Speaking up for yourself and others and setting boundaries and fighting for a cause that you believe in and defending your values. All right, so if we are to really simplify this as much as possible, we are going to look at the next slide here. So advocacy is telling a story. You're telling a story to someone who is a decision maker through different ways. With the idea or with the goal of influencing that person to do something or not to do something. We're going to dive into this definition to explore each part of it for, the rest of the workshop. But in its very, very simplest form is you are telling a story, and how is that story affecting you? Or how is that story affecting you and other people within your community who are sharing similar experiences to you, or who are sharing identities that you hold, however those identities intersect, right? That those could be gender, those could be race, those could be age, could be disability, you name it, okay? Now let's go to the next slide on why we advocate. So of course, we all advocate for different reasons. And we have different advocacy issues that we each personally care about. For example, in the organization I work for at March of Times, our advocacy is primarily focused on creating an inclusive and barrier-free society for people with disability. So what that means is we advocate on a plethora of issues, some of which include financial security, accessibility, physical accessibility, independence at home and in the community, and also even access to care. So my question to you guys Because I'm sure many of you could be advocating for different things. You're not all advocating for the same thing. I'd like to know, what are some of the issues you personally advocate about? What are some of the issues you often advocate about? Feel free to type your response in the chat, or to unmute your mic. I see the chat here with anti-Black racism. Yes, absolutely.
Accommodation.
Absolutely. Accommodation. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? What kind of accommodation?
Just, so that you're able to work, to do your work efficiently. Like if you need to sit to stand desk, or you need moderate adjustments.
Okay.
Or
So accessibility accommodations.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you, Susan. That's a great response. I see in the chat here we have equality, gender equality, mental health. We have more access to entrepreneurship for people with disability as a means of increasing financial independence. Yes, absolutely. And with accessibility, these are all great responses. Any other guesses? Any other last answers you want to share about the things that you are personally advocating about? Yes, Camille.
So I found out that my financial planner has to advocate for me managing my finances as a person with a disability, because they believe because I have a disability that I need a power of attorney. And it's frustrating because he knows I'm smarter than him. And then he has to, if he makes a trade in my portfolio, like I'm buying a different stock or something, he has to get it approved by the fund managers. And they're wondering, how could I do this by myself? Like, it's impossible. I'm disabled.
Oh, boy.
And I was like, do they need me to write a test to prove I know how to manage? And it's a conversation we're having, like.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that was a thing in the financial service industry until he told me.
I didn't know this either. This is news to me.
Yeah, and
I am flabbergasted.
It's really weird because the portfolio is like at $100,000, and I'm managing as much as I can, and I don't really like Elon Musk. Like, I have an understanding of what's going on in the market right now. Yeah. But to have my financial planner, I thought was my advocate, be like, hey, I have this challenge with the managers. I'm like, what do you mean? And yeah, I'm now thinking, do I need a lawyer to advocate for me, just because long term I don't know what they're going to do? And
you might, definitely. I'd say reach out to Arch Law. They specialize in representing people with disabilities for all legal matters.
Okay.
I can send that to you by email if you'd like, a bit later, or I can even ask Connor to just pop in the chat the link for Arch Disability Law right now. And yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry that you're experiencing that.
It's because I'm being in more spaces that typically are able-bodied spaces. I'm seeing how they still believe old messaging of people with disabilities. So even that, like going into spaces that are typically able-bodied that I'm not, and then I have the knowledge and they think I don't. So I think I always need a lawyer on speed dial. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're most welcome. All right, let's go to the next slide.
I have one more, sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm dealing with it right now. Union reps.
Union reps.
I'm meeting with my union rep tomorrow because I want to know how they are representing me in my organization. So this is the first time I'm meeting them that I've reached out. 7 years I've been in this company, and I need to know how they're advocating for me, because there's been some situations that I'm like, I don't know if this is right, So I need to get some understanding how they represent me. That's all.
That's really good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Let's go to the next slide. So now I'm curious even more, and the next slide, on how often do you advocate? How often do you guys advocate on different issues? Is it weekly? Is it daily? Is it monthly? Is it every few months? How often would you say you
Every day.
advocate? Every day. Yeah, that makes sense. Daily. I see that most of you are saying daily. That's amazing. Yeah, that's very true. And, every couple of hours even. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And that can be very exhausting, right? So I just want to do a little recap again in this next slide. Uh, we had said advocacy is what? It's telling a story, right? To a decision maker through various means with the goal of influencing them to do something or not to do something. So now, when we're trying to advocate, we need to know that who's a decision maker. We'll go to the next slide here. So whatever issue you may be advocating for, you need to start kind of like mapping out things and figuring out about like who is the decision maker. So think about some of the advocacy issues you care about. Who are the different decision makers that impact the issues you think of, right? So let's start with like some of the examples that you guys are giving right now. I see doctors are decision makers. Yes, when it comes to health, absolutely, absolutely. Any other decision makers when it comes to advocacy? Social workers, yes, absolutely. Government bodies, yes, absolutely.
Manager.
Caregivers, sorry?
Your
Managers?
manager.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, bankers, yes, absolutely.
People.
These are all people. Yeah. Family, yes, family too, absolutely. These are all great. Examples here. Let's go to the next slide. So a decision maker is someone, a person, an individual, or an institution that is in a position to take actions or make decisions on issues that are impacting the society. So it can either be a person or it could be an institution that is placed to make decisions and take actions on issues impacting you as a person or issues that are impacting the society at large. Okay? So let's talk about how we identify decision makers. Let's go to the next slide here. So when we advocate, it's really important that we are reaching the correct decision makers. Otherwise, we're going on a maze. We're not getting things done because we're not sure on who the decision makers are for a specific issue. And what you got to keep in mind is just because someone is in a position of power or influence, it doesn't always mean that they can make the change that we want to see. Okay? So research is really important. Do a lot of research. Research the structure of the government structure of whatever that place may be, whether it's the federal level, whether it's provincial level, whether it's municipal level, whether it's even the school sector, like looking at how that governance structure functions and the hierarchy, that kind of like that pyramid graph, if you can picture it, where you're seeing all the different bodies that are making decisions on particular things, then that helps you figure out like, okay, this is the person I need to contact to ask about X, Y, and Z. Because based on this issue, whether it's a health issue, whether it's a financial issue, whether it's a societal issue, whatever it may be. Okay? So, for example, I'm going to give you an example. If, let's say, there's an issue in your building or in wherever you live, and let's say you're renting, um, do you know who the decision maker would be if there's something wrong at your place? Let's say the pipe bursts, or there's no heating, there's no AC, or the entrance of where you live is never cleaned. Who would be the decision maker in that scenario? Property manager, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The property manager would be involved in that. Okay. Any other guesses? Yeah, honestly, that's great. Yeah, property manager then escalates to head office if needed. Yeah, yeah, the office that's hiring the property manager. And then if we were to talk about the grounds of the place where you live, sometimes it's the city that's involved with, let's say, clearing the snow, right? Or keeping the place clean and the outside grounds of the place you live. And that may require for you to get in touch with the municipal where you stay to ensure that things are done in a timely way, that it's not impacting you in any way. So it's really, really important to know who the decision makers are, okay? And who is responsible for what, for which area that you are basically talking about. So let's talk about entry points. Let's go to the next slide here. So sometimes you might not know who is the right person to contact, right? Life sometimes is going to be lifing. So it's really possible that you may not even know who to contact and who the right person is to reach out to. So you might need, in that instance, you might need to figure out an entry point. How do you get in to ask your question or get the information you need? So some of the examples is, putting your info in the contact form, right? And sometimes there's someone called a service navigator or a patient navigator. So it's essentially a staff that, or multiple staffs who are dedicated to supporting people with navigating a system. For example, the healthcare system is one of them. And then even looking at the complaints process, right? So most large organizations will have some sort of like online feedback or complaints process for you to address your concerns, right? So these are some of the entry points you should consider. And then there's the ombudsperson. So many, systems that are run by the government, such as the healthcare system or the educational system, they have actually dedicated ombudsperson. So an ombudsperson is someone who basically promotes fairness and accountability within a system by investigating any complaints and systemic issues that arise. Okay, and then you can also even check the directory or the org chart, the organizational chart. And many big organizations will actually publish an organizational chart or even a staff directory on their website. So those are like some of the entry points you can begin to explore when you're not sure who is a decision maker and who's making all these moves, right? And then looking at the leadership page within an organization. And the leadership page will have basically a list of members of their leadership team. And you never know, you might see their contact info there to reach the senior executive and figure out like who is responsible for that particular issue. And then the most powerful entry point that I can't encourage you enough to use is your network. Okay? Your network, the people that are surrounding you, this community that you're in right now is so powerful that they could know someone who knows someone if they don't personally know, right? network is really powerful. Like reach out to your communities for help, and you'll be surprised who knows who, and you'll be able to get your entry point right there. So I really encourage you, as you're doing your advocacy work, start to think about decision makers. Once you think about decision makers, start to think about entry points. Like, where can I get to where I need to get to? Who do I need to reach out to? Is there a contact form? No. Is there a service navigator? Yes. Is there a complaints process? Yes. Start to look through those things, keep them in the back of your pocket. They come in very, very, very handy. And if you don't have the energy to go through all that process, reach out to your network. Reach out to your network. I can't stress this enough. So let's go to the next slide. So to be an effective advocate, you need to influence, right? Like the purpose is to influence, and the goal is to get the decision maker to do something or not to do something, depending on what the issue may be. So my question is, like, how can we be most influential? I'm going to talk a little bit about how to be an effective advocate in the next slide right now. Okay, so the goal of advocacy is to influence the decision makers. So that's through relationship-based or rational or evidence-based or collaborative ways. That's kind of like some of the ways you can be influential is through relationships. So here we have an image in the slide here of kind of stick figures of people. And there's one stick figure that's kind of like sticking out in the slideshow to show that they have influence, just for visual descriptions for those having a bit of a barrier to seeing the image in the slide here. We're going to go to the next slide. And we're going to talk a little bit about a relationship based. So you need to be credible and healthy. And there also needs to be extended trust and goodwill. Okay. And also, there's a very positive, specific intent. You're here to connect and to make friends, to create connections with people. So that's like really like influence that's relationship based. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So reasonable. So working, you need to be reasonable when you're trying to be an effective advocate. So you need to work within the bounds of what's realistic and possible. So understanding also like what are the priorities or constraints the decision makers are dealing with, right? Because sometimes the decision makers, they don't have all of the power to do everything that you are asking of them to do, right? There's constraints that could be attached to that. So kind of like keep that in mind. And sometimes you may ask that, what are the constraints you're experiencing? And the decision maker will be like more likely to help when like their guard is a bit down and they're showing a little bit of empathy in that sense. Okay, so another way to be an effective advocate in the next slide is collaborative. Okay, with evidence-based data and other things like Stats Canada reports. So you need to be able to know your stuff. You need to know your information when you are trying to advocate. You need to have evidence of how many people are being affected by what you are trying to advocate for, right? Have the numbers, have the stats. It's really, really important to have proof when you are trying to get your point across. Okay, we'll go to the next one, which is collaborative. There is power in community. There's a lot of influence when you have a lot of voices saying the same thing or the same issue, or addressing the things that are affecting the community at large. So if there's 30 of you if there's 50 of you, that creates pressure, right? And pressure is needed to get decision makers to do something about what you are advocating for, right? And even if you don't have, let's say, people who share the same struggles as you, find allies, people who believe in your cause, right? Find allies and establish coalitions or movements to work together, right? We've seen like a lot of like disability issues that there's been allies that have been there working in collaboration with the activists. Same thing with racial issues as well. There's been many allies and groups of people working alongside people to make things happen. So collaboration is really, really, really huge. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So to be an effective and influential advocate, you need to keep these four things in mind. So relationship-based, so being credible and helpful and extending trust and goodwill. And then we have like rational, right? And like understanding like what's within the constraints, what can actually be done when decision makers are dealing with certain things, like what's within their reach, what's not within their reach. And then we have evidence-backed, which means you have stats, you have facts to back up what you are fighting for. And then collaborative, that means you are reaching out to people within your community who are fighting for these similar things and who are believing in what you are fighting for, the cause that you are fighting for. It's a collaboration, right? So just think of this acronym REC. So to be an influential advocate and an effective advocate, there has to be some REC, right? So relationship-based, rational, evidence-backed, and collaborative. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I love quizzes. So let's see if people have been listening here. What's the definition of advocacy? What is the definition of advocacy? So many of you gave really great answers earlier, but there's something that I said that to really like break it down. Storytelling, yes, thank you, Camille. Absolutely. It's telling a story to someone to do something or not to do something. So you're telling a story to a decision maker. Yeah, storytelling to a decision maker to influence. Absolutely. You guys are listening. This is great. All right, let's keep going. Okay. All right, next slide. Okay, so it's really important to develop an ask. So what you are advocating for is called an ask. And you need to basically write down your list, right? And prioritize and have one ask. Because what you gotta keep in mind is the decision makers, they may only give you a certain amount of time to meet with them, right? So you gotta figure out what is the most important thing that needs to be addressed at this point in time, right? Because you don't want to give them too much more than what they can chew, right? So bite sizes. So you figure out if you have a list of 10 things, narrow it down to top two. And then maybe you decide last minute which one of the top two you want to address. Okay, so what you're advocating for is the ask. And also, it doesn't mean that when you get a no, that like the ask is not valid anymore. That means like we need to try another door. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about developing advocacy messages. Okay, so the message equals basically how you frame that ask. right? And it's really important to always be on the message when advocating, right? It's really important to really focus on the ask, okay? And then if we go to the next slide here, it's really important that when you are meeting with a decision maker, you need to keep your messages short and you need to be direct, okay? Here in the slide, we have an image of a bunch of screens that are tangled together, right? You don't want your message to be tangled. You don't want your message to be confusing and hard to kind of like parse out. Because here in this image, we have an image of like threads, different colors, yellow, red, green, and it's kind of hard to pick up like how do I untangle the green thread? How do I untangle the red thread or the yellow thread, right? So you just want one thread. So you want to be short and direct. And it is very likely that the decision maker is very busy. So issues can actually be complicated. So you need to present a clear problem, right? So what is the issue? And then you also present a possible solution, okay? And that solution cannot be the only solution. So the solution is essentially the foundation you are creating. You're saying, as a starting point, this is the solution that needs to be done in order to create change. And then the decision maker can collaborate with you. They may come up with some ideas that you may not have actually thought of in that moment, right? So it's really important to tailor your message to each decision-making individual and make it personal to them, okay? Let's go to the next slide. So we're creating our own advocacy story. So let's start with, can I give me examples here? So let's start with an issue. Someone give me a random issue that someone could be advocating for. One issue. Job, okay. Employment, okay. And with employment, you may be experiencing discrimination at work, right? So that's the issue, discrimination at work. Who would be the decision maker or the decision makers? So when I'm asking you this question, I don't want you to go all the way to the top. I need you to think of the pyramid, right? Like at your workplace, there are many decision makers. So before you get all the way to the top, I need you to tell me like who are the decision makers you should consider. I see union reps, absolutely, absolutely, yes. Manager, yeah, direct manager, absolutely, absolutely. Any other guesses? These are all great. Union reps, manager. Anybody else? Who else would be a decision maker within a workplace? Yeah, we have HR, but HR is like at the very top. I'm trying to see like who is like in the mid tier or the lower tier of like the decision making process. So we had manager, we had union reps. Those are great. Team lead, absolutely, yes, yes. Okay, so those are great guesses. These are excellent examples. So now that we know who the decision makers are, we want to know what is the ask, right? So what kind of accommodation are we looking for, right? Or like if we said the issue is discrimination. So it's discrimination based on what? Race, age, gender, sexual orientation, disability. What is the ask? Right? Okay. Can you give me examples? So what is happening at the workplace? Discrimination based on what? challenging tasks. So you may need accommodations within the workplace, right? Or you may need things to be given to you in a timely manner. Yeah.
Not being included.
Susan.
Not being included.
Not being included. Not being included in every way, or not being included from a specific perspective.
From your own or your department, just not being included in generally your own role that you're in,
yeah,
and not being
absolutely
department shoes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Inclusive workplace policies that allowing people to wear their hair in their natural state. Absolutely. That's a very, very good example. And also experiencing disability, illness symptoms while at work that affect cognitive functions. Absolutely. So accommodations around disability related needs, and also accommodations around like freedom of expression, right? To wear the hair in their natural state.
Or not receiving any support.
Absolutely. So that's the messaging, right? That not to be discriminated on any of these grounds, right? Whether it's disability, whether it's race, whether it's general inclusion, whatever it may be. That's the messaging, that zero discrimination within the work environment. So just to recap before I head to the next slide here, we said the issue was within the workplace, right? The lack of inclusivity within the workplace. And then we tried to think of who are the decision makers to reach out to address the issue that's happening at work. Well, some of you said union reps, some of you said team leads, and some of you said managers. Those are really great kind of like first steps to take before escalating the issue to senior management or to the executive leadership, right? Because when you are showing all the steps that you took before getting to the executive leadership team, you are basically showing a trail of failures from the system, right? You're showing basically like, I tried this and this was not addressed on this level, and in this level, this was also not addressed. So now I'm coming to you as a last resort, right? Because you don't want to be given a runaround, right? You don't want to go to the executive leadership team or to the head of HR, and then they'll tell you, did you talk to your manager about this? Has there been any resolution about this from that level? Did you talk to your union rep, right? Like you don't want to be given the runaround. So you want to exhaust those options by the time you get to the talk. Does that make sense? Yeah? Excellent. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, looks like we're already debriefing here. Wow. Time has gone by. I've been enjoying interacting with you guys. Before I let you go, I just want to know what is one thing that stood out to you today? I need to get a sense of like what you took away. If there's one thing you took away from this entire presentation, just one thing, what would it be? Because like, that's going to be something that's going to be useful for you in your advocacy efforts, whatever you are advocating for. So if there's one thing that stood out, please list it in the chat or feel free to unmute your mic and let's hear it.
One of the ones that we just, oh, hold on, my video. 1 second. Ooh, did it come on? There we go. One of the ones that you just mentioned reminds me sometimes that the entire act of advocacy can very much be a process. And what I mean is that as much as sometimes I'm a pessimist and I might be like, oh, they're not going to listen, or, oh, you know, this point is not going to get across. I need to go higher up, or I need to go somewhere else. Sometimes even that is part of the process, getting those no's from lower levels, like you said, as proof of the work, and not to get the runaround. You kind of almost have to do the, I don't know if you have to, but sometimes you kind of have to do a bit of a dance of look at my proof, look at my proof sheet that I've tried all the avenues you're gonna say that's gonna delay and give time, and here we are now. So I think it's giving me flashbacks of other moments where it's like the homework, it's part of the process, as frustrating as it might be, just to show them all your other avenues are not viable. What else are we gonna do? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And if I may add as well, I was actually talking about this with someone earlier, that it's always good to journal about the series of events. I can't stress this enough. So whatever points of communication or whoever you communicated with, write it down in a document, in a Word document, or on a notebook, or however way it's easier, and write down the date, time, what was communicated about, and what things were offered to you, and what were the next steps, right? So think about that. Always try to practice that in every advocacy effort you do. Is journal every interaction, because you never know when it's going to be handy, right? Like I'm not like, don't use it whenever that there's a negative issue, but I'm saying that also use it when there's positive experiences, because you never know when that's going to be useful in the future. So just start getting into the habit of journaling your interactions when it comes to advocacy efforts. Yeah, I see Camille.
So I've heard you speak on this multiple times, and every time I go into a situation of advocating, you make it like an easier Rubik's Cube. Like it's easier to solve each side of the puzzle, where like how now I have to go maybe get a lawyer to help me with my financial planner. Like it's just so much easier that it's broken down in smaller pieces. And then you got me to remind myself to take names, write down the name of who I spoke to and what day I spoke to them. Because when I escalate it, I can tell them I spoke to Mary or John and they said this. So, and maybe there's only one or two Marys in the office. They can probably fire these people. I used to not take people's names. And now, I have a journal, I have a notebook, I write down what day I'm talking to them. And it's easier. Like I don't, like when I had to call the city to remove the snow, I was calm. I was not yelling at anybody. So this is why I like you presenting this, because it breaks down the emotional attachment. And it just makes it easier of solving the problem of getting the win. Where now I can call my MP, I can call bigger people. And I didn't think I could call bigger people before. So I like that you do this and it's repetitive all the time because of March of Dimes advocacy toolkit that they have. And I don't feel as scared as I used to before. So I appreciate that.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Camille. Really appreciate that. And also, if I may add, while you're taking the name, there may be instances where you ask for a name and you're not going to get the full name, you just get the first name, which is totally normal, but because of like privacy reasons. What I would ask is their employee ID number, right? So so they may give you the name and say, my name is Jackie, right? And I say, okay, hi Jackie, what's your last name? And for employment policy reasons, they might not even be allowed to tell you their last name. They might not even allowed to say, my name is Jackie Richardson, right? But you can ask for an employee ID number. Like, okay, Jackie, thank you. What's your employee ID number? Just so that I can reference in the future. I don't want to run around if I need to talk to you again, right? Like, no one wants to feel like they're being like watched or anything like that, but like, be as relaxed as possible and just be like, hey, no, thank you. If you can just give me your first name and your employee ID, if you can't give me your last name, that's okay. It's just so that I don't have to deal with someone else in the future. I can deal with you directly or someone who takes your role in the future if you're not here. Simple as that, right? So keep that in mind as well. Susan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's so on time. I have just agreed to a meeting with my union rep tomorrow at 3. And prior to us having this meeting, I just met with one of my colleagues on how to strategize, how to present this case to my union rep, because this is my first time meeting her. So you did an awesome job telling the story. You helped me organize my thoughts, because I feel like that book of yarn with all that string. I've got so many issues to bring, but you narrow it. And my reasoning to speak with them is to have a relational conversation with them, because I'm not there to hide anything, but to be transparent. I'm arguing for, well, I'm advocating, not arguing. I'm advocating for what is right and is the right thing to do. So that's how I'm approaching it. I think, in terms of getting names, getting receipts, having emails is very important with the back and forth, so you know who you're speaking with. Because I'm in an organization, to put it clearly, where I feel that yes, I'm employed by them, but I feel like I'm not working for them. I don't know if that you understand that. I'm doing things, yes, I am, but it's not being truly valued by the organization. And just like that young lady said before, they're understanding that I'm a little okay. I have an invisible disability, but they just sort of like fluff it off. It's like whatever I do is like, I'll give you an example. I take LinkedIn Learning. I've done 218 courses, and it means nothing. Whatever they've done or whatever they put out, I've done it, but it means nothing to the organization, because it doesn't. It's like I'm there, but I'm not there, type thing. So I need to speak to my union rep, because I need to explain, like, listen, what's going on there? There's some things that are going on around me, and I'm the last person to know that they're happening. And yeah, like,
That you're not included and you're not valued as an employee, as a contributing employee.
And I've been there 7 years. So, and a lot of it is because of, like that young lady says, the fear of my background, who I am and what I represent. I'm pretty much, I could lead what they're doing, but I humbly just take the job, and I'm happy, grateful for it. But I know I'm overqualified, and that's basically the thing. When you're around people that know that you're overqualified, that's how they react to you. So, but I want to thank you. I've been involved with Marsha Dimes, and I've done a presentation, and we need more of this to build the confidence, because what we're doing is not wrong. It's what we rightfully deserve to be viewed and valued in this society. So I want to say thank you for this, guy. It's just so on time, because I have this meeting tomorrow, and it's helping me formulate my 1-page ask that I'll be doing tomorrow.
I'm so glad, and I'll be sending a copy of the slide to the organizers here, and hopefully they can share that with you guys, so that you have kind of a reference point, because I'm not expecting you all to remember every single thing that I covered today. So I'm really grateful for you guys. The interaction has been great. Any last questions before I say my last goodbyes? Feel free to pop them in the chat or to unmute yourself. No? All right, I was going to go to the next slide with my contact information here. So you can reach me if you need to reach me at advocacy@marchofdimes.ca, email me there, and feel free to also even join this network that I run called the Disability Advocacy Network. I'll be sending that info to the team as well so that they can share it with you. So basically, the Disability Advocacy Network is made up of people with disabilities across Canada, where I teach different advocacy-related workshops, and I also even have coffee time sessions where we get to network with other people with disabilities across Canada, and we talk about a bunch of issues in a more relaxed way. And then recently I started offering one-on-one virtual office hours. So if there's a particular issue that you are trying to advocate for and you're not sure like how to navigate it, I'll be happy to meet with you in a one-on-one session as well. I'll send all that info to y'all for whoever is interested. So thank you. I wish you all the best in everything you do. And I hope I get to connect with some of you via email or video calls in the future. And I wish you a great day and hopefully warmer weekend ahead.